I've been studying this type of work and following you for 12 years, and I've manifested some wonderful things in my life, and I let myself fall out sometimes out of the vortex.
This feels like injustice, doesn't it? Because we're letting her get away with it, and we weren't letting you get away with any of that.
And my question pertains to a physical thing. If you act as if, and if you have thoughts of what you want to manifest and act as if, how do you deal with it on a physical level? For instance, I have developed food sensitivities over the years where I get reactions to things that I eat. So if I want to buy into the belief that now I'm allergic to these foods and I shouldn't be eating them, I feel deprived and I feel like I'm less than whole and less than healthy. If I do my affirmations and visualizations and I'm living my life in the vortex, but yet I'm eating these foods because to me that seems like a normal, healthy thing to do, to eat all the foods that are offered to us, and I react physically, what do I do? Do I keep eating them and have the reactions, or do I stay away from it and feel less than I want to feel?
Well, first of all, there are so many things that we want to give you here. Most important, if you are predominantly in the vortex, those adverse reactions would subside.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, but there's so much more that is important for you to understand about this. Another very important thing, we would never encourage you to move forward in action about something that you believe is inappropriate in some way. In other words, once you have defined a specific anything as detrimental to your experience, we would not act as if it isn't when your belief is that it is, because it's the vibrational discord that is at the root of everything that goes wrong, not the manifestation. In other words, it's not what you're eating, it's your belief about what you're eating that has you in discord here. So now consider this, because it feels like the way you laid that out, you said, so if there are things that I'm having an adverse reaction to, then I only have two, in both cases, out of the vortex choices. I cannot eat them and feel deprived, or I can eat them and get an adverse reaction.
Right.
And we say, this is a very perfect example on the heels of what we've been talking about, of how if you try to take the action in order to get the movement of the vibration, in other words, every illness, just like every negative emotion, is about energy misalignment. And sometimes energy misalignment shows up through this way and through this way and through this way, but it's the energy misalignment that is the essence or the core issue here. And so now we're breaking that down into this more recent conversation. The way of hearing this more easily is to say there are in the vortex experiences and out of the vortex experiences. So just stay with us. This will unravel easily for you. So now you know what we always say, especially lately. We don't want you to do either one of those, to choose either one of those outside the vortex choices. We think there's an in the vortex choice that you can make. So extrapolating from what the outside the vortex choices are, I don't want to feel deprived. I want to feel satisfied with the food I'm eating. I don't want to have adverse reactions. I want to have positive reactions to what I'm ingesting. So now focus there on that sort of inside the vortex conversation just for a moment. All right, now we're going to back up and lay another basis. We will never write a book that says, this is the list of food that is in the vortex food, and this is the list of food that is out of the vortex food, because everybody's vortex is different. So you will never find a list of foods that are vibrationally acceptable and a list of foods that are not vibrationally acceptable. But this is always true. When you are outside of the vortex for any reason, you will choose outside of the vortex foods for yourself. When you are inside the vortex for any reason, you will choose inside the vortex foods. And you can't compare your lists. because your vortex are unique to you, you see. So haven't you noticed that when you get frustrated, or when you get overwhelmed, or when other things are bothering you, that's when you then naturally feel drawn to all of the things that you've already decided are inappropriate?
Of course.
Isn't it interesting how that happens? And when you get all tuned in and full of yourself, don't you find yourself then doing more of the things that you believe are appropriate? And the thing that we so want you to understand is it's not the behavior, it's not the activity, it's not the specific food that is making the difference. It's that some things you believe are inappropriate, and when you're out of the vortex you're drawn to them, and some things you believe are appropriate, and when you're in the vortex you're drawn to them. And the fact of the matter is, you cannot find alignment with the things that you believe are good for you unless you're in the vortex. And what's tripping you and almost everybody else up is you still believe that there are good foods and bad foods, good behaviors and bad behaviors. You still believe that you should be able to find some list and then adhere to the list, and then because you have adhered to the appropriate list, then you'll get in the vortex. And that's what we're wanting to help you to understand. It doesn't make any difference. Get in the vortex and you'll be drawn. So now we can hear where you're going next, and we'll just go there easily. So what that sounded like is you have beliefs about foods that you want, but you feel deprived if you don't eat them. And you have beliefs about foods that you believe are beneficial. So your worry is, but Abraham, if I do this work that you're talking about here today, and I get myself consistently in the vortex, then I'm going to have a lifetime of eating boring food, aren't I? Because inside the vortex, then I'll only be able to eat the stuff that I believe. And we say, what happens when you get inside the vortex and you consistently stay inside the vortex? You begin to bring everything that you want in there with you. So what's going on right now is that, you see, what's happening is, oh, this is so good. So we've been talking about not being able to get in the vortex because some issues are so big they just hold you out. So then we've been saying, ignore those if you can, and we've been demonstrating it here already, and use whatever you can to get in the vortex. So you get in the vortex using the easy things to get in there. Esther has a long list of them. She thinks about Kate and the day they made lemonade, and she thinks about the treehouse and the day Elsie climbed up the tree and flew through the air like Rocky the Flying Squirrel into her arms. She thinks about the lizard. She thinks about meeting Jerry. She thinks there are a long list of things that just are so easy to just contemplate just briefly, and into the vortex she goes. So you get into the vortex, and then you introduce this food sensitivity, and the vortex spits you out. So you get into the vortex and you introduce the subject, and the vortex spits you out. So you get into the vortex more determined now to stay and to think about food and the way it responds to you. And you look for, because now you're trying to see this subject through the eyes of source. So rather than defining the food you can't eat from outside the vortex, you see it through the eyes of source from inside the vortex, and you contemplate, there are many things that I enjoy that I can eat. So now you're thinking about the subject of good tasting, good responding food, and you're still in the vortex. So now you get a little braver. You're in the vortex, and you continue to think about your appreciation of your physical body, and your appreciation of your life, and your appreciation of this time you live in, and your appreciation of how much wonderful food is available to you, and your appreciation of having access to the things that you really want and need, and your appreciation for your physical apparatus and its agility and ability to digest and consume and receive benefit from. And now you ponder something that you really like to eat, and you don't get kicked out of the vortex, which is odd, but you've stabilized yourself there so well. And then you remember a food that you used to enjoy, that you used to eat, that you used to not have a response to, and you take pleasure in the idea that you could return to that again. And the vortex still has not spit you out. Now you are inside the vortex. You have activated a vibration that formerly would have taken you right out of the vortex. Only this time, because of the dominant in the vortex vibration you got going on, you bridge that belief. You move that vibration into a new place, and you are forever changed relative to that subject, because you did the vibrational work. You got into the vortex, and from inside the vortex, where the energy that creates worlds dwells, you focused from your inside the vortex perspective, using the energy that creates worlds and the veritable focus of source. This is what healing is. When you sat before Jesus dripping your illness, he did not see your illness, because he was inside the vortex. And from inside the vortex, you see only the possibility, and only the potential, and only the well-being, and only what is being asked for, you see.